Hey coding house, welcome back. This series we are going to talk about JavaScript which is required for learning React or Angular or let's say Vue.js or Node.js. Now as you know JavaScript is the main part of it. I'm going to show you various stuff like how to set up your ID using Visual Studio Code, what are the different extensions you can use. Let's start with how do you compile a JavaScript file locally without using a browser. Then I will show you what are the different type of variables, objects in JavaScript, arrow functions, what are different arrow functions like filter, map. Then we'll talk about spreading, destructuring, things which are used very commonly in React, Angular, and so on. We'll talk about different type of inputs, very nitty-gritty things. Then we'll go to the very important topic called as promises and async await. So let's start with this. The very first thing what we are going to do is install Node.js. You can simply just go to Node.js org and download the latest version or the current one, which is this one. So it is long-term support. What I'm taking here is 20.11.1. Once it gets downloaded, you can quickly just install it. Once installed, you can see that the setup will complete, and it's simple. Next installation, nothing fancy here, and I am installing my node. Now, why is node required? Now, remember one thing, JavaScript was only designed to be working on browsers. So in 2008, when Google Chrome outsourced its JavaScript engine, which was V8, then Ryan Dahl, a guy, he did what? He extracted your Node.js out into a C++ program, made it as an executable. That is the reason you are able to actually run JavaScript outside the browser by making use of Node. So Node is, as you can see, it's a JavaScript runtime environment. Nothing, it's not like a framework like a Spring Boot or something. It's a runtime environment for JavaScript. So once this is done, installed, you can just open your command prompt, check for node version. So it says 20, and if you say node enter, it's giving you the shell for the node. So far we are okay. And next thing is, if you are new to this, I'll show you where you can go for Visual Studio Code. You can download the latest version. I will put this links in the description. You can check it out from there. So you can download it. I already have this installed. Once you download this, you will be having it like based upon next installation. So let us open. Let me set up a folder first quickly. Create a folder called as JS. Once I do that, I can open my command prompt here just by going into my command prompt saying cmd here and typing code space. Now, if you're on Windows and even it works on Apple, so if you type code space dot after your Visual Studio Code is installed, it will open a brand new editor for you in your Visual Studio Code. And this is how it looks like. So left hand side, I'm going to do what quickly. Just write a file. Let's call it as an index.js file. I just delete it quickly. And let me create a file. You can create any folder, that's not a problem. And I'll say console.log hello, welcome to JavaScript. But this JavaScript is going to be running on your machine. So very simple, like println statement of other things. I have just given it here. How do you run this? So there are two ways. Either you can start your terminal by pressing Control and tilde symbol, or you can go to the view. You can just go to view and check for terminal. You say node space index.js file and see hello, welcome to JavaScript. Another way you can run this is you can go to the browser, or you can go to the folder where this file is, start the command prompt here, and again type the same thing, node space index.js, and it will give you the same one. This is how you set up the IDE. You install Node.js, you set up the IDE, and you can basically just start working on this particular scenario on your own machine. And as we have discussed, we are going to talk about a lot of different topics. Thank you for watching this video. Please do subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. Thank you. Hey coding house, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to talk about variables in JavaScript. Now variables by definition are simply what? A placeholder which can hold some value, which can change, and you can alternatively mark it in a way that it should not change. Now in JavaScript, because JavaScript is not statically typed, it is dynamically typed, you do not specify the type when you write a JavaScript variable. So a normal way, the default way of writing a JavaScript variable is I'll show you with a simple example. Let us write this file and let us call it as var versus let versus const. Now these are all different type of variable types which are allowed in JavaScript. And let's say I'll say console log. We're talking about var. Now var is a very specific type. For example, the very first way I want to show you for var is let's say I create a function here in JavaScript. Function understand var. Now, when we talk about understand var, what we are trying to do here is I'll start a for loop. I'll say for var I is equal to 1, I is less than equal to let's say 10, I plus plus. Very simple for loop here. Yeah. And after I do that in the for loop, I will simply say console log I is equal to, and I say it is I. Now in JavaScript, you are allowed to comma separate the files in console log. And if it is a normal programming language, see what happens here. I'll call the understand var. I'll open my terminal and I'll say node space var let const. See, it is printing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. My question is, if I have this, if the for loop ends, and in a normal situation, this is one of the problem with var, that its scope doesn't end with the, like for example this block in this, it will not end its scope. So what happens here is if I say console log I is equal to comma I in, and this is outside, right? So I'll just write that I identify here that console log I am outside loop. Okay, here I am outside the loop. And if I run this again, see what happens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is the problem, folks. See what happens here is you cannot, like once the block is ended, the variable needs to die. This was a problem with JavaScript. So what they did, they bought in, they said, we are going to introduce the var will be now further divided into two. We'll either call it let or const. Now let or const does what? So let is what when you want a variable to be updated, and const is when you don't want a variable to be updated. So I do what? I say console log and let's try to understand things about let. And if I go to let now, you can simply see I'm going to copy paste this. Yeah. And I'm going to just change that. Okay. I say understand let. Instead of var, I call it as let. Okay. And here too, I say understand let. And if I clear my screen, run it again, and I get an error here. The error, see, the first one ran very quickly, perfectly, but the second time it says that this reference error is not assigned. Yeah, that means, see, I'm just putting it up here so that we'll be able to understand here quickly that I is not defined when I called. Why? Because I'm trying to use, so let and const are block scoped. Yeah, whereas these are function scoped. It will be available anywhere inside the function for var. So that was one of the problem which was resolved. And you can see that if I want variable declared using let, another thing I want to show. So I'll just how about I comment this two line. So I'll get rid of those errors. Then I want to show let name is equal to code width. Yeah, let name is equal to code width. And I say console log name. After that, I say name is equal to name dot concat, or let's concatenate using plus symbol. So I'll say code with space Z. And now I say console log of name again. So that allows me to do what? Let's clear screen this and run this again. And this time you can find, first time when I was printing, it is just printing code with, second time it is printing code with Z. So with let variable, it is obviously block scope. It will not be allowed outside the block. Secondly, if there is any variable, I would be able to actually change it. I will be able to change my variable. And the last thing is, let's say I do console log for const. Okay, I do console log const. What do I do in console log const is, see, obviously these are also block scope, and const variable cannot be updated. Once the value is defined, you cannot update. So what is the another thing I'm going to do here is I will simply say const here. Let's say my employee count is 2000. I declare the value. I can use it any way I want. So let's say my employee count. But if you try to update, right? See, so far, let's see what happens here. See, so far it is showing me that the count is 2000. But what if I try to update it and I say employee count is equal to employee count plus 1000 and run it again? See, this time it says assignment to the constant variable is not possible. This is the error it is giving to me. And so with const, the values cannot change. So the ideal situation in React Angular wherever is as a part of clean coding, start your variables with const. If need arise, then only convert it to let. That way you will not make any mistakes. So this was all about. Hey coding owls, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to talk about objects in JavaScript. Now objects in JavaScript are a very important concept. Unlike other programming languages, here you are not required to actually create a class or give a type, something like that on the fly. You can create an object and that plays a very important role. Why? Now let's say you are into a project and you require to just create one object for settings or some administrative work, and you require two or three keys. But if you are in an object oriented programming language, you'll have to go and create a class and then create objects now that have its own use. You need to understand and you need to differentiate between that. So here what happens is you are trying to do what you want to create an object. You can create that object on the go. So it's simple. Like you start with a pair of curly brace and you assign that value, and you all have all our key colon value pairs. And key colon value pairs, key is always your string, values is always whatever you want, like number, boolean, string, object, a function, and so on. Now there are various different things how you can create an object, plus how you can modify that object in JavaScript. I'm going to cover it all. Let's jump into it. So let us start with objects in JavaScript. What exactly are we doing in here? So let's say I'll say const person, and my person, as I said, we start with a pair of curly brace. And what is the next thing I do here? I say, let's say name colon, and I'm giving my name. So my name is Zartab. Okay, I pass my age. I say, let's say 33. And here, so see, I've taken a string, I have taken a number. Now what I want next is, let's say I want to give my blog website is www.codewithz.com. So this is where you can find all your codes, and whatever I type, whatever the codes are, you can actually log into codewithz.com, go there, check. And on that note, please do subscribe to my channel. And continuing ahead, so here I can actually describe a function as well. Let's say I want to create a function, let's code. I want to create a function called as let's code. And this function, I'm doing what I'm just saying, console log start coding. Okay, simple as that. So I have created an instance here, and now if I say console log of person and I start my terminal, let me just switch my terminal to right side. Okay, let us position to the right. Okay, so this will be able to okay. Yeah, now I do what I say in node space objects in JavaScript, and I find, see, I have my object, and this object is having particular values. I can do what if I want to fire, I can simply say person dot let's code, and this way it will allow me. See, if I run this again, it is saying start coding. That means that function, I'm able to call that function. Now the very important, so how does JavaScript allows you to edit or make changes into an object? That is very important when you go to validations and those parts. One of the very powerful tool, when I say powerful, believe me, it is next level powerful. That this, there are two ways. Okay, how do we modify? Let's jump into that one. And so I'll just put up a comment here saying modify an object. There are two ways I can modify an object. First is by using a dot operator. Now dot operator is quite simple. Let's say I want to say person dot degree is equal to, and I say masters in information technology. Okay, and once I do this, and if I say console log, just for creating a proper update here, I'll put up a blank line so that we'll be able to differentiate in our logs as well. And I'll say let's print person. Simple. And when I run this, see, when the updated object is printed, I have the degree available. So I was able to actually add a key into my object, yeah, by using a dot operator. But with dot operator, the thing is that you will always have to rely upon the name. You always need to have the name of the key. Sometimes you don't have that. Okay. And the other way, what we can do is by using the square brackets. Yeah. So how we do that? So I will again copy paste this one here, because we are starting with a new implementation. So I take it up here. Next, I'll say person of, let's say, color. My favorite color is, let's say, black. So you see, when I print an object like this, and it will result in the same output. That is, it will be able to actually give me what exactly my object is. So object, the key is added into the recent object. See, the last one which is printed, the key is added here and the value is black. But the powerful feature which I was talking about, JavaScript objects, it arises here now. See, you, when you are using with the parenthesis, you can actually specify, let's say, const or let, because I will be actually making the changes to it later on. So I want to say that my property name is something, and I have let my property value is something, and I can simply just go here and say person of property name is equal to property value. And once I do this, if this works fine, which will, yeah, you will understand that if something is available in a part of a variable, you because this is a variable, it can keep on changing. I can make the changes at runtime. Why? Because see, right now here, my person, it is dependent upon a variable. Now I can change the variable from anywhere. So that is the beauty of this particular thing. Believe me, I have done a lot of production project. This particular feature helps a lot. So let's say I want to specify city, and I want to specify value here as Mumbai. Okay. Or so see, this will work fine as well. I'll do what, just for our sake, I will comment of all the console logs we have been using here. So we don't see a lot of data. Yeah. I'll just keep this one. The last one I'll keep. So clear the screen, and if I run it back, you see the city of Mumbai has been added. At the same time, if I copy paste this whole thing again, okay, if I copy paste this whole thing again, I put it up here, and I'll get rid of this let. I'll get rid of this let. Next time, let me add that I want to pass on a text stack. Okay, I want to give a text stack, and this time, rather than passing a string value, I pass what, an array. And in array, I say I know Java, I know JavaScript, I specialize in big data technologies, I also know cloud, I work with DevOps, and I'm trying my hands in AI. And let's see what happens now. I run this, you see, this is the beauty. Now you can keep on receiving the value again and again from an end user. This is how objects in JavaScript looks like, works like. I hope you have enjoyed this. You can find all these codes on the link in the description. You can go to my blog codewithz.com. Thank you for watching this video. If you have liked it, please do subscribe. Hey coding owls, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to talk about arrow functions in JavaScript, one of the most used feature. It allows you to concisely write your regular function expressions with very ease, and the syntax is very easy. Let's straight away jump into it.
I use arrow functions. Let us ask ChatGPT. So when I did that, it said it has concise syntax. So the syntaxes are very concise. You don't write the traditional functions. We don't need to worry about this keyword binding when working with arrow functions, as they are not connected, or they are not putting into the context of our object. So we don't need to worry about that. We have got the concept of implicit returns, no argument binding, and it is very much suitable for functional programming. And we do not have any naming conflict happening here. First one. Why? Because they are anonymous functions. They can be used anywhere. So there is no problem of having two functions with the same name because they don't have the name. Yeah. So let's jump into this and start looking at this practically. Create a file. Let us call it as arrow functions.js. And in my arrow functions.js, what I do is first let us write a very simple function. Let's say function say hello, and inside this say hello, I say console log hello to arrow functions. Okay. As I have written my traditional function, let us convert this into an arrow function. So converting a normal function to an arrow function, very easy. I'll show you the simple tricks. What you do, you don't need the keyword function. You don't need the name of the function. You simply copy this from here. Okay. I copied from the parenthesis, pasted it here. Now between the parenthesis and the starting curly brace, you need to put up a fat arrow. Now there are two types of arrow everywhere. One is called as an arrow, which is just a hyphen and a greater than symbol, and with an equal to and a greater than symbol, it becomes a fat arrow. JavaScript uses fat arrow. Other programming languages like Scala, they use normal arrow. So here you see this has actually been converted into an arrow function. Now, if I want to call the function above, how do I do that? I'll say hello bracket semicolon. Okay, let's try to run this. So I say node space arrow functions dot js. See, it says welcome to arrow functions, but this is not working. And how do I? Because this is just a function which is defined. You either need to take it into a variable. Now arrow functions can be assigned to a variable simply like this. How? Let's say const my first arrow is equal to. So you need to understand this is the variable to which I have assigned this. This is not the part of my arrow function. Arrow functions can be assigned to a variable, or it can be passed as an input to another function, which are also called as an higher order functions. So here what I'm doing, I am assigning it to my variable of first arrow. So this is not actually the part of my arrow function. In fact, I'm just assigning it to a variable so I can reuse it. So if I want to call it now, I can say my first arrow bracket, and you will see the same output twice. Yeah. Why? Because this was how it was called. Now let's jump in and see how you can use arrow functions more. Okay. Let's start with a simple example where I have a function which is called as square me. Okay. And I take a single variable here of number. And I return number multiplied by number. Okay. Now, if I want to convert this into an arrow function, simple procedure. What is the procedure? You know, right? Copy from the parenthesis, okay, paste it, and put a arrow between the parenthesis and the curly brace. You might feel what I did, I just copied it from this function, I converted into another function, things are exactly same. How is it more useful to me? First thing, now let's start optimizing it. First thing is, if your arrow function have a single parameter, you can skip the round braces. I am not a big fan of this. Why? Because it breaks your code readability. Always use the round brackets or the parentheses because it will denote that this is the parameters. Yeah. So what I do, I can copy this. I can simply say I don't need this number brackets C. This is fine. No error means this is perfectly fine. Let's optimize this more. So if your function contain a single statement, okay, we can get rid of round your curly braces and the return keyword, both of them together. You cannot just skip one and use another. That is not going to be there. They are either going to be always together or absent. So now what about this statement? If the statement what we are going to use is an executable statement, for example, like console.log, it will just execute. But if the statement is a value, it will be returned. So it precisely return you the value. So end iteration, how it would be, see, number, arrow function, And I will simply say, because I am not using the pair of curly brace, I can also skip the return statement. This is how I write a function to square, and then let's say const arrow square is equal to number. But again, as I told you, I am not a big fan of skipping the round brackets because it does not let you know whether this is a function or not. I always prefer keeping this value as it is. So this is how you can write, you can easily, like you started from here, and this is how you're converting an arrow function, simple way to work around it. How about let's do one practical arrow function here. So this is my arrow, this is a normal function. How do I convert this? Again, the same step. You copy from the parenthesis, paste it, pass the arrow function. Now, because we are having the pair of curly braces, we only have first thing, we only have a single line of statement. I can skip the pair of curly braces and also the return statement, and this is how it will be converted into a normal arrow function. On the other hand, when I have a function like this, which says what? I have a calculation, it has 3-4 lines of code. If I want to convert this into an arrow function, what do? I copy this. Same process, but this time because my number of lines are more than one, I cannot skip the pair of curly brace, I cannot skip the return statement. We have to write it. This is how you write your arrow function. I hope you have understood the basic working of arrow functions. Now we will be using arrow functions in our next part where we start working with higher order functions. They play a very important role when it comes to the higher order function. Thank you for watching this video. Please do subscribe to my channel for more such content. Hey coding owls, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to talk about higher order functions in JavaScript. These are basically those functions which take another function as an input or returns as an output or both. Now why are these important? So any function in JavaScript when we write, there are certain generic values. For example, you want to filter an array, but how? Like there are multiple ways, and JavaScript array can be of string, int, other objects, functions, anything. You can put anything which is a normal JavaScript variable inside your array. But while filtering, their logics can be different. Sometimes you want to take out even number from an array. Sometimes you take out all those strings which starts with S in an array. Sometimes you want, there are multiple objects you want of cars, let's say, and you want to filter out those cars whose color is black. Possible. Now these are various logics you see here. The logics are very different you want to implement. So see, in this simple infographic which I created, we define, like, there are two steps when you write a higher order function. You write a JavaScript function that does the generic stuff like filtering a given array. This function mostly will be provided to you by your library classes. In the situation what we are going to use, we'll be making use of an array. So we have some good features in a JavaScript array called as map, filter, which takes another function as an input, and whatever logic you provide at runtime, whatever you plug in, it will do the filtering, it will do the mapping in that scenario. So you see, we write a JavaScript function basically that does the generic stuff. So we know what to do. How is it to be performed is something you are responsible, and this basically allows me to write more expressive way to structure my programs and enable the function compositions and so on. So that is a wonderful way. Now let's jump into the practical and watch out for it. So let us get started with this simple example. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a numbers array, and I'll do these things with the traditional function way first. So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 8 numbers in the array. I want to find out what are the even numbers here. So I'll say even numbers is equal to blank array. I'm not using any higher order functions from array or something. Simple. I'll just write a for loop. I'll say for let index is equal to 0, index is less than numbers dot length, and index plus plus. First let us find out that number, what individual number we are dealing with. So I'll say number is equal to numbers of index. Okay, numbers of index. And then if this number which I have got mod 2 equals 0, I will say even numbers dot push an individual number inside it. Simple as that. I do that, and now I say console log original array was this. So I'll say numbers, and console log for even numbers. I have got even numbers. If I run this, and I say, so the original value was 128 and the even numbers are what, 245, 2468. But how about if I want to write this using a higher order function? How will you do that? So I've landed up on the documentation for array filter, and as you can see here, the filter function takes an callback function. Now this callback function is nothing but how you define, this is what you do, this is how you define that you want to do the filtering. So let's use that. I will go back here. I will write a function because we are doing filtering. It's a rule that while filtering, your function should return a boolean value. So this time we are doing it using what, a higher order function. So for the higher order function, there are two requirements, right? First one was what you want to do in this situation. What we want to do is filtering, and is the function available for that? Yes. Where in my array there is a function called as filter, and then what we want to do, how we want to do. So here I want to filter, let's say, all my odd numbers. So is there a filter, is there a function available right now? No. Let's write it. So what am I going to do is I'll write a function, normal function filter odd, which will take a number and it will always return an odd value. So I will say return true if my number mod 2 equals 1. It will return me what? A true. So for all odd numbers, the remainder is always what? 1. And it will return me that. So how do I deal with this now? I'll say const odd numbers is equal to whatever are my original numbers dot filter. Now this filter is available here because it's a higher order function, and here I pass the reference to the filter odd function. Now what will this filter odd function do is, let's see the output first. So here if I ask for odd numbers comma odd numbers, and if I run this, see, same thing but very easier way. So what is exactly happening here? Let me demonstrate this to you. As you can see, odd numbers are, I consider there are only 4 elements here, and what is happening, I have called numbers.filter, and filter odd is a function which is returning a boolean value. So first what happens, the first number will go here, it will return either true or false. If the value is true, it will land up in the odd numbers array. If but when I pass 2 mod 2 is not going to be equal to 1, it will result into false. It will not land up in my odd numbers array. I hope this graphics makes it easier for you to understand how does the filter function works in array. Now let us optimize this more. Here what I want to do, rather than writing it in this way, how about if I, because if you see the filter function, this is nothing but I can convert this into an arrow function as well. So let's do again for even numbers. With arrow, and here I say numbers dot filter. This time let us convert this first into an arrow function and then use it. So obviously the logic will be a bit different. So I will say, you know how to convert this into an arrow function. If not, you can watch out the video. It might be in the description or it must be showing you on the screen. Just check that out. So what we are doing, I'm converting this into an arrow function first. I say equals 0 and not 1 this time. Okay. And as it is a single line return, I can get rid of the curly brace. Also, I can get rid of the return statement. And I don't need this semicolons. I can simply say that I want to filter and paste the value of that filter here. And after that, if you see console log, even with arrow is even numbers with arrow, and this should give you the output I was expecting. Yeah. So see how it is easier to write a higher order function when it comes to JavaScript, and very important feature to write a higher order function with using arrow functions as well. I have shown you the very easier way to do that. Now there is one more important function called as map. I will create a dedicated video for it. Please do subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching this video. Hey coding owls, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to talk about the map function in JavaScript, one of the very important function. The reason I have created a dedicated video for map is exactly its importance. Now here imagine that we have an input array, and that input array I want to apply a transformation on every element of that input array. So we have a function called as map in JavaScript. Now, as you can see in the example I am showing on the screen, consider I have a array which numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and I want a alphabetic representation of them. I will actually make use of map function in JavaScript, pass that every element to that map function, get the output. And one thing about map function is for every input you will always get an output. Yeah, and we have already seen the filter function. You can check out the link in the description, or you might be seeing on the screen right now. But so the basic difference between filter and map is basically, for filter you take an element and you pass it through a function. If that function returns a true, we will be considering that output element into the resultant array. Whereas in map, as you have seen, every input we actually apply a transformation function which will return a value. So for every input in the map, you will always get a value back. Based on that, we have got some different elements as well. For example, the number of input elements and output elements are not always same in filter, because when you're filtering, some data might go off. Rarely a case where in a filter you get everything back. And in map, obviously the number of input and output elements are always same. Why? Because we are applying a function to every element and we are getting an output back. Obviously the output element will always have those values. But on other hand, the type of input elements and output elements are always same in filter, because if you are filtering a array of numbers, the output array will also be of numbers. But for example, you are using an input array of a number and you want the spelling representation of it. So the input type was int, whereas the output type is a string now. And you can see I have given a simple example here. So this is how your filter and map are differed, and map function is very important. Every element will go through a transformation function, get a final output. So let's jump into the VS Code and start coding for this. So in my VS Code, I am creating another file here. Let me call it as map function dot, oh, my caps lock is on, map function dot js. And here let's take an array. Simple. Let's do a very simple example first. Const numbers is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now I want to basically apply the filter map function, and I want to say for every function. So let's say double me. I'm going to create a function called as double me. Double me will do what? Take a number and return number multiplied by 2. Okay. And then how do I write the map function? So let's say const doubled numbers is equal to numbers dot map, and I will pass the double me. Now what will double me do? You remember from last time, right? Every element in the numbers will be passed on through this function. It will take that element and it will redouble that number and return us back. So if I say console log original, okay, and I pass the numbers and I pass doubled numbers now. So let's say doubled. I've got this, save it, and let's try to execute this now. So if I say node space, see, original was this, updated was, doubled was this one. So if you can see, for every number in the numbers array, I am passing it to a function called as double me, which is returning number mod 2, multiplied by 2, and the output we are storing. So for every element, we have a transformation array. We are not using any conditional operators here. We pass the function and pass it to the function and it returns us a value. So this is the beauty of map function. And let's go back to the code. This time what I have done is used it through a different function. But let's say I want to create a squared functions, like every element I want squared. So I can say squared functions, squared numbers, and I can simply do numbers dot map. And because this is, I can use an this is a higher order function, I can use a callback function. So why not use a arrow function here? So I'll say for every number in numbers, return me number multiplied by number. So this way we are able to can simply do this console log, and I can say squared numbers, comma, squared numbers. Okay, and if I try to run this again, squared numbers 1, 4, 9, 16. Okay, so this way what we are doing, we are taking care of the map functions, and this is how it works. Now, why is it so relevant when it comes to React and Angular? And why am I creating this specific code and like dedicated video for map? Because this is one of the most used functionality when you go to React, Angular, and so on. So if you see my element on the screen right now, if you see for the things what I have now, consider from backend we are going to get 4 different objects which contains the name and let's say gender or something, and we have to convert that into an element. So again we will be making use of the map function. How? Here for every element which we get, for example from the backend we are getting the user profiles and we want to convert it into a UI. So this is what I am planning to do. Obviously our output will not be available in JavaScript. In React it renders, but I can create the HTML code out for it. So let's see how we can do that. Let's say this is our second example where I have const users as my array, but this array is considered to be made up of objects. So let's say ID1, name Tom, gender department, let's say IT, and let's create this 4 times, and let's see how it can be done now. So I use VS Code shortcuts. So we've got ID 1, 2, 3, 4, Tom, Marian, Elizabeth, Leonard. Okay. Then let's say they are in departments IT. This is also an IT. This let both make them of finance, and here also we'll make of finance. So simple array, and I want to now convert this in this map function. I want to write so that for every element. So consider I have my output like this. I have a division tag. I have a division tag. Inside this division tag, I have a h1 tag which shows their name. Okay, which shows their name. Then for h2 tag is displaying their department. Yeah, h2 tag is displaying their department, and somewhere in the bottom in a paragraph tag, I am displaying their ID. Okay, and this is the output I want for every single user. Like I want to convert this into a division object here. So how will I do that? Let's begin with that. I will comment this off here, but keep it available for me because I'll be using it. Now let's write a function which will the map will call for every time converting this. So I'll say transform to component for every user. What will I do? I want to return. So I want to return a long text. So I'll use pair of ticks. Ticks allows me to write multi-line string in JavaScript very easily. So I will use the same components copy pasted here, and between this I will say dollar question mark user dot name. So dollar question mark is what nothing but string interpolation, which allows me to concatenate string in another string. So user dot department, and I also have user dot id. And now what I do, I'll say const transformed users is equal to users dot map. So for every element in the user object will be passed on to what transform to component. And if I print transformed users, see the output I'm going to get. This is beautiful. Oh, I got an error. Let's fix this. There was an error in the input, so I used a period symbol rather than a comma. So let's fix that. Has to be a comma separated value. Make the change. Make the change. We don't need it after the last one. And So here you can see I have got the division objects which are created, and I have got Tom IT and 1. Then here I have got Mariam IT, then Elizabeth Finance and Leonard Finance. Now obviously this is printed here, so the string will look up and down, but when you do it in your React application, it actually becomes the rendered output, and you can fix it under with CSS and anything you want. So this is how map function is very important. And so thank you for watching this video. You can find the source code in the description, and please do subscribe. Hey coding owls, welcome back to the channel. You might have heard about true and false value, but this video we are going to explore a concept called as Truthy and Falsy in JavaScript, which plays a very important role when it comes to conditional rendering in Angular and React. So let's jump into this. So as you know that there are true and false value, which are boolean true and boolean false. But in JavaScript, we have got a concept where a string, if it is non-empty, it is considered to be a truthy, and it will result to the same. Like I can use a string straight away inside if and a string, and it will give me a true and false value. So that is the beauty of JavaScript. If it is an empty string, yeah, no character at all, it will be considered as falsy. If a number is zero or is non-zero, negative, positive both, it will be considered to be a truthy value. But if a number is zero, it will be considered to be a falsy value. If a JavaScript object including array and function is considered, because the moment we create an object, it is something pointing to something, it is considered as a truthy value. If a value returned is not a number, if you are trying to divide a string by a number, it will return you not a number, it will be considered to be a falsy value. Now next you have an array are considered to be an object, so the moment you declare them, even if it is an empty, it will be considered to be a truthy array or truthy value. Same if you have null and undefined, they both are considered to be the falsy value. Where there is an absence of any object or any value, it will be considered as falsy. And if, as you know, in JavaScript we can also assign functions to be a part or to a variable. So those variables who are pointing to a function or any defined function is considered to be truthy in JavaScript. So this gives you a basic context. Let's jump into the program, try to understand. So let us try it out with the program. I'll write a new program, Truthy versus Falsy.js. As I said, it is important. So what will I do is, let's try with a very simple one first. If hello, okay, I'll say console log Truthy, else console log Falsy. And if I try to run this, so let me just switch to command prompt, and this node space Truthy versus Falsy, and see, now it is saying me that this is Truthy. At the same time, if I say let number is equal to 1, and then I say if number, okay, then I say if number, I use this same scenario again here. So this will basically be the second output, right? Truthy. And if I make this 0, it will become falsy. Yeah. Why? Because the number, it has to be 0 for it becoming falsy. Now for an object as well, let some object is equal to, I take a blank object, okay, and let me just delete this. We don't need that anymore. But what will I do? I'll just keep this part, and I'll use some object. This way what will happen now, let's see. It is saying that because it's an object, it is giving me, it is like Truthy. But if I keep my object like this, which will be now currently pointing to undefined, so here it is giving me false because it doesn't know what exactly it is. Same if I say some array, so for some array, if I even give a blank array, okay, it is okay, sorry, my bad, it has to be some array here, and it says Truthy. Again, if I get rid of this, it will become falsy. Now, how exactly is this used in React? Now, imagine the situation where we are loading data from backend, okay, and whatever data is going to come, let's say it is const details or list of employees, okay, I keep it like this. Then inside some function, yeah, function fetch data, what I do is in this function I will make the call to the backend. Okay, I'll make the call to backend, and then whatever data I retrieve, I will load it in list of employees. So it will be loaded here with some code. So in my UI, what will I do? I will say that if this condition is true, I will say const, not const, list of employees and okay, list of employees and some UI. So by the time this is empty, yeah, by the time this is empty, it will not load anything. It will basically, I will use a loader, and if it is not, if the moment I get the data, I will write the actual value. Yeah, whatever data I want to load, I will have basically loaded here. So that is how you use this into React. I just wanted to show you one snippet. Let's see this file, which is from one of my project. I will show you exactly where I have used it. You can see this part here, right? If movie ID is okay, not this, yeah, this one, see. So what I do is I have applied a condition that if error dot response, now error dot response is not a boolean value, but error dot response is an object value. If there is something in response for error, and if status is 404, then I say go to not found. This is one of the use of Truthy and Falsy value. How? Because whenever you write conditions, you are prone to write boolean value conditions. But here I am checking whether if error object has an internal response object. So if the object is available, it will be considered to be the true. Plus, if the object is available and its status is 404, then I'm clubbing it with some different condition. Exactly, you are understanding the point here. Also, I am. This is okay. This is a normal boolean condition. I might be using it some other place as well. See this place as well. If result dot error, if there is no result dot error value available in that object, I'm not checking whether it is a boolean value. Is it a true or a false value? I am just checking if my result have an error, return null. If it doesn't have error, return null. So that's how you make use of truthy and falsy values in JavaScript. Very important concept. You should actually learn this before you jump into React. Thank you for watching this video. Please do subscribe to my channel. Hey coding owls, welcome back to the channel. This video we are going to talk about a concept called as object destructuring. Now, we transfer a lot of data between various pages. Sometimes we pass the data in objects, and that object contains tens of, twenties of, fifties of variables. Now, the traditional way of taking it out was a bit different. Like we used to have to use dot operator all the time. So JavaScript has got into a concept called as object destructuring. Let's explore that. As you can see on my screen, let's consider there is an object which contains a lot of various fruits. Now, if you want to take out those fruits, you have to say fruits dot watermelon, fruits dot grapes, fruits dot pineapple, and so on and on and on. We have to just keep on using the dot operator for so many things. But what if JavaScript provides us with a different way called as object destructuring, where when I use const and then use a pair of curly brace and I point it towards the object, I will be able to access those variables straight away without using the dot operator, and it makes our life much more easier. So how about let's jump into this practical and understand this. On my screen I have created an object destructuring.js file. Now consider I have an object. Let's say the object is address. So my address is equal to, and let's say the address contain multiple things, like for example the city I belong to is Mumbai, then the state I belong to Maharashtra. Okay, then let's say I give you a pin code. So my pin code is 400001. Okay. And then I have my country is India. So now I have an object which contains 4 different variables. I want to take out those. So let me first also show you the traditional way. So the traditional way of getting all these variables out would be what? Let's say const city is equal to address dot city, then const state is equal to address dot state, then const pin code is equal to address dot pin code, and then I have got const country is equal to address dot country. So we have got these 4 variables, and if I say console log and I want to print this, so console log, I will start with I'll just make some markers between them: city, comma, hyphen hyphen, state, comma, hyphen hyphen, pin code, comma, hyphen hyphen, comma, country. So you see what we do here is we bring in this, and now what I'll say node space I have got object restructuring, and I run this and I get this detail. So this is the traditional way. This is something we all know. Now let's try the object restructuring way. So what I'll do is for now comment this off. When we do the object restructuring, what we normally do, so this is my object restructuring. Under my object restructuring, I will say const, I'll put a pair of curly brace is equal to, and then I mark it to the base object. Here in my object, I will say city, state, then I have got pin code, and I have got country. See how easy it has become to, and I will get the same output here. If you see, I'll make the changes. I'm getting the exactly same output, but how it has changed. I just made use of const, and it is not only that I have to get everything every time. For example, I got first two in the first option, then I say const, then I load the other two, which is my pin code and country, and again I point it to the. So the only idea behind showing this is that based upon your requirement, let's say your address object have 50 variables. Now you only need 3. So whenever required, just point towards it, get it, and that's what you do. So this is as simple as getting in object destructuring. Now there is one more point which we need to discuss. So the idea here is, let's say even before your address was declared, there was a variable called state. Okay, and it was pointing to MH, which is a acronym for Maharashtra. Now this time, what will happen? The variable was already there, and as per the JavaScript scope, you cannot declare another variable. See, while you are declaring it here, there was an option. Yeah, there always used to be an option that you can fetch the data as per your requirement, and you can also, like, instead of state you would have said st, but how will you do it here? Because this time you're destructuring it and you want to fetch it out. So when you want to fetch an object, original object, and rename it, yeah, how do you normally do that? You put up a you put up a colon, and you say st now. So this time what will happen, it will, from address it will destructure a state and rename it as st in your scope. So this time, if let's say here I add up st, comma, and you see, let's see the output. So this time it is Mumbai MH, which was for state, then my destructured object of Maharashtra, then my pin code, then my country name. This would be a beautiful time for you to go and subscribe to my channel. Your subscription motivates us to create more such videos. So here we are checking out what happens when you have a function and you want to try destructuring. Now this is still a traditional way. If you see, I get the output in a different order here. What I've got functioning and destructuring, we have got state, city, and pin code. And I have a display address function. I get the address and I display that address. But what if I tell you that in React we use this a lot for doing the destructuring stuff. So that time, how do we update our function? So let's say I'll create function display address new way. Yeah, let's say new way. This is what we normally do in React as well, that you are accepting props and the props are so many, so you know that you're going to get state, you're going to get city, and you're going to get country, and you also want pin code. This time I'm decoding it all, destructuring it all, but still, yeah, that's not a problem. And then I say console log, and this all is getting printed inside my function. Okay, inside my function. So here I do console log, I have got city, then I have got state, I have got country, okay, and I have got pin code. I have got all this code, and then let me just call this with what. So when I call this thing now, I'm not going to pass multiple things. I will simply pass my address object, and I'm expecting the same output. So clear screen, and you see from those functions I get this value. So this is how destructuring in JavaScript helps to make our working much more easier. Thank you for watching this video. Do subscribe. The code link will be in the description. Hey coding owls, welcome back to the channel. This video we are going to talk about another very important concept of JavaScript called as spread operator. Now spread operator, as the name suggests, spreads the content either of an array or of an object into another array or another object. Now if you can see, if I have an array, first array, second array, and if I just combine them using a normal operator here, that's a comma operator inside an array, you will see it will create an array inside another array. I don't want that. I want the content of one array to be spread in the second array. As you can see what I've done, the arrays, the spread operator here are denoted using the 3 period symbol, and yeah, they are majorly used by array and an object. So the major work is the way we spread butter on the bread. It is used for spreading the content of an array into another array or a content of an object into another object. It is also used for cloning, and it has a very extensive use in React where it is used for passing the props from one component to another. So let's get into the practical and understand this much better. Okay, so let us create quickly a new file here and let us call it as spread operators.js file. And what we are exactly going to do that, as I said, it is denoted by the 3 period symbols. If it is inside an array, it will be square brackets. If it is inside a object, it will be with a curly braces. Now let's say I have const first is equal to 1, 2, 3, and then const second is equal to 4, 5, 6, and then if I want to combine, let me see this. And then if I say const combined, if I try it in this way, see, I pass first and then I pass second. And if I try to see the output now, let's say first is this one, then I have got second, and then I have got combined. And if I execute this now, it will say, see, first time it is giving me an object 1, 2, 3, then 4, 5, 6, and when I combine it, I'm getting an array inside an array. This is not something I was looking for. So the simple operation here is, if I replace that and if I spread the content of first array as well as I spread the content of second array, see how easy it will become for me now. And if I do that, see, the content got spread across. Yeah, this is the beauty when you use it. For example, you want to create an output like this. Now let's say 1, 2, 3, then A, then 4, 5, 6, then B. If I try to do that using a normal operator, it will be a problem, like, yeah. But how do I do this with let's say const output I'm expecting? So how will I do that? I will simply say dot 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 first, comma A, comma dot 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 second, comma B. See, this becomes easier. And now if I say console log output what I was expecting. Okay. And you can see the output I got is, it makes working with objects and array easier. Before we go ahead and understand the new trick, it would be a great time that you go and subscribe to my channel. It motivates us to create much more video like that. Going ahead, what I do next is, let's say const grades is equal to, let's say original grades were A, B, D, and C. Now, next I do what? I say const sorted grades is equal to grades dot sort. Okay. Now, if I print after this, let me print console log grades, and here I say console log sorted grades. Okay. If I see my output, it is saying grades is this, sorted grades is A, B, C, D. Now, just for fun of it, let me see what is the value of original grades. Yeah, what was the value of original grades after it has sorted? So the wild guess would be it should still be A, B, D, C, so that I can use it for further processing anywhere. But if you see in JavaScript, they actually sort, when even if you're storing it into another object, it will make the changes into the original array. And this is one of the scenario where you will lose the data on your actual original array. So the solution to this would be, how about you do just, you create a clone. This is where you create a clone of your grade. See, I create an array, create a clone, and after I do this, so this way I am not affecting my original array. Yeah, I am keeping my array as it is, but it is still making the changes, and I got the new array with abcd, but my original stays same, and that is very important. Now let's see how do we use the spread operator in objects. For objects we will use the curly braces. So how we do that? Let's say const name is equal to name colon code with z. Okay. Then I do what? I add another array. Let's say const job is equal to, okay. I say profile is, let's say corporate trainer and YouTube. Okay. Now I want to create one combined object where I want to use this book. So if I say combined object, let's do that. I just add name, comma job, and try to see the output. So if I say console log combined object, and if I print it, you will see I have got name and an object, then I've got job and an object. I don't want this. I want to use the content of this name and job. So I'll say what? Dot 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 name, dot 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 job, and now see, I got a single object which is showing me, which is taking the data from the first object and from another object. So this is also used when we go to React. When I want to pass the data in props, like from one area where I'm fetching the data and I want to pass it ahead into the props, you will find out that we are making use of this particular, like I'm just showing you a snippet. It's not exactly the actual one, but inside a React component somewhere, you do, let's say child component, uh, let's say some data is equal to, you pass it under, yeah, let's say abc, but after that you also should do dot dot dot, yeah, you do dot 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 props. That means apart from this, pass on all the data, like this is the new data, but also pass on the incoming data ahead to the child props. Now obviously we are not into the React course, but this is an important scenario where you use spread operator ahead in React. So that's it from this video, or this code will be available on my Git repo. I have given the link in the description. Thank you for watching this video. Do subscribe and share it with your friends. Hey coding house, welcome back to the channel. This video we are going to talk about strings in JavaScript. Now strings Any language plays a very important role. We just need to understand how that language handles that string. So in JavaScript, you can write your string in double quotes, single quotes, and tilde symbol. So single quotes and double quotes, they work in a similar way, but the thing is, people coming from a lot of different languages into JavaScript, some supports double quotes, some support single quotes. So to make it available for all, JavaScript did that. But the real magic happens when you start using string with the tilde symbols. Now, tilde symbols allow you to write multi-line string. Plus, it also enables the concept of string interpolation. Now, so let's jump into the practical and start explore this. So here I have created a file strings in JavaScript in my regular series, and I want to show you that const name is equal to, when I say in single quotes, it works fine. So I've got code with Z. Then I've got const city is equal to, let's say, Mumbai. And now I do console log. Console log can actually help me with formatting a string very easily. So I can say lives in city. Now, if I try to execute this, let me move my panel to right. Okay. Okay. So here I say no space strings in JS, and it says code with Z lives in Mumbai. So simple. Uh, as we discussed earlier, single quotes and double quotes, they work interchangeably, and just for enabling it for anyone coming from other different languages into JavaScript, because JavaScript saw an influx of people coming from other programming languages in JavaScript in this recent 5-10 years time, because of the popularity, obviously, what JavaScript has got. Next is, if you want to have, let's say, a paragraph to be written, okay, and I say, if I have to write multi-line string, we have to start with the tilde symbol. Now, tilde symbol can allow you to write multiple string. Okay, so what I do is I go to my blog and I pick up, let's say, this much part, and I want to post this inside my string. So I can do this here simply. I just copied it from my website and I am pasting it here. And now if I say console log of paragraph, let's see what happens. See, it is printing it as it is, like if you want to store some multi-line string. So this is a good option when you want to create a panel for where you're taking the multi-line string like address, blogs, and something like that. You want to fetch the data, you can use it in the tilde symbols, which allows you to store the multi-line string very easily in JavaScript. Now, the next part is very much now, the next part is very much something we want to understand, is concept called as string interpolation. So before we start the discussion for string interpolation, this would be a good time for you to go and subscribe to my channel and share it with your friends as well. String interpolation is one of the best way where, when you have to concatenate a lot of variables inside your string, you can simply do that by starting your string with a tilde symbol. And once you start your string with a tilde symbol, you can make use of dollar and curly brace symbol to inject your string without breaking your string. Now let's try to run this example without interpolation first, and then with the interpolation to get to, for us to understand the differences. Here, as you can see, I have got three variables. Const name is equal to, let's say, Thomas. Const company is equal to code with Z. And const, because I have declared the name already earlier, okay, name, let's say name of employee. And then const employee code is, let's say, CWZ0001. Now I want to create a sentence which should look like this. Okay, let's see. Thomas works for code with Z. His employee code is CWZ0001. Now this is something I want to achieve. If I try to do this with a normal string, so let's say const line is equal to, okay, I put it in double quotes, and you know what I do here is I'll put it like this. This time it is going to be what, name first, right? So I'll say name plus single quotes start works for single quote start again plus this time it is company, right? Company plus single quotes, the comma will be included, and his employee code is end of single quotes. I start with plus, and I will enter employee code and do console log of line. So you can see code with Z works for NAN. Why is that? Okay. Company is something we added here. His employee code is something like this. Okay. Oh, I used a minus symbol by mistake here. See, code with so okay. This time I was going to change the name. So let's call them as Thomas. Thomas works for code with Z. His employee code is CWZ00001. But see how difficult is it to use this plus symbol again and again. How about we go by interpolated line? So I'll say const. I say I line, which is interpolated line. What I do, I start with a tilt. In the tilt, I can, whenever I have to integrate a variable, I use dollar and pair of curly braces. I say name works for, again, another variable integrated, which is company. His employee code is tilt employee code. This way, and my output would be same. So if you check my output, there will be 2 times it is printed, exactly same. But you see the way I have done it the second time, it's much more easier. This is what we called as string interpolation. You should be aware of this. Used a lot in React because you will be integrating strings here and there, and should be a known tool in your toolbox. So this is all about strings in JavaScript. Thank you for watching this video, and please do like, share, and subscribe with your friends. Hey coding owls, welcome back to the channel. This video we are going to talk about asynchronous operations in JavaScript. One of the most important in the journey we have started where we are leading up to the JavaScript you should know for React and Angular. And let's start with a story today. So consider this is a typical Sunday morning in your house, and we know the mothers are busiest on a Sunday morning. So here I'm going to create an analogy where you are a callback function where your mother is a JavaScript thread. JavaScript is a single threaded model. It will wait for no one. Now, as you can see on the infographic what I have created, there's a mother, she's busy. What are the planned tasks for her today is watering the plants. Then she have put some food inside a pressure cooker, and she again needs to do some laundry. So in this whole scenario, our mothers are like a JavaScript thread. They will keep on going and they cannot keep waiting, like they cannot stop. Same way a JavaScript thread cannot stop. So here you can see my mother is watering the plant. Now, watering the plant requires no feedback, or there is nothing related like a callback. That task is done, it's done. But now, imagine this is what happens here. She will put some food in the cooker. Now, she cannot stand there for another half an hour till that 4 whistles or 6 whistles happen. So, this is where you come into the picture, right? She asks you, you know what? Can you please count the whistles and let me know? So, in a way, you have been assigned as a callback function. Now, she will go ahead do her job of the laundry, and that laundry machine have that alarm beeper, right? That after 30 minutes it will go off. So that alarm beeper is like a callback. Now, remember one thing. In this scenario, what will happen? She have assigned you a task. She will not ask you to go and take care of that pressure cooker. You are supposed to do that, but what you are doing, you are waiting for that event to complete, like 6 whistles, 8 whistles. After that, you let her know, okay, this is done. She'll come back, take care of it, complete the part after it. Like she needs to keep it for two more whistles or anything like that. So this is a very good analogy when it comes to understanding the asynchronous part in JavaScript, where your mother is like a JavaScript thread, you are a callback function. You just call back with some input, like based upon some event, you call back, and that's how it proceeds. I hope this has made understanding about this clear. And now let's jump into a simple example, try to understand that. So this is the ultimate result I am planning to approach. I will write a JavaScript code where it will have two functions. The first function will call the database and get me the name of the GitHub user. I will pass on that name to the second user, which will pass it on to GitHub and get me the repos it has inside it. So this is something I'm planning to achieve. And let's start with where we can face those problems. Let's create the problem statement. Like, what is the problem statement? And there are three solutions to this I'm going to discuss on. So let's start with the first one. Let's say console log before. Okay. Then I say console log after. So this is like watering the plants. This will happen straight away. I'm going to write a function. Let's say get user, but I'm considering that when you make the call to the database, that call is not going to be returned back quickly. I'm considering, let's say there is a 3-second time required for getting that call back. So what I do here, let's say get user, I pass you the ID and I want the GitHub user for this particular user. What am I doing is I'm making use of set timeout, which is nothing but a, yeah, and it will take 3 seconds. And what exactly this will do here is after 3 seconds, it will return me the ID of the user. Yeah. So I'm trying to emulate that this particular function will take some time. So it will say reading ID from the database, and it return, let's say, an object that git user is equal to, and I say ID colon 1001 and username colon code with Z. It's my GitHub user. And then I return this git user. Okay. Then I return this git user, and this is returned after 3000 milliseconds, which is I'm trying to emulate 3 seconds here. And what I do, I'll put this between before and after. That I want the ID. So let's say const, what is the user object I'm getting back? So I'll say get user, and I pass them 1001 is the ID. I want the git user ID for this. So which will be passed on to me, or I can simply emulate the ID I am getting from them. Then I'll say console log the user object which I am getting. Yeah, the user object which I am getting. So after this, if I try to execute, let's see, this is like a problem statement. I say node problem statement.js. Before undefined. And after 3 seconds, it started working on this. So what has actually happened is console log worked fine because we made the call. At that time, it didn't return anything. It told me undefined and it went off. But based on this, if I try to print the value of user, it is undefined. I cannot use it for the further scenarios. Like, what is the scenario? I will get the ID from the database. I will use that ID here in this function statement. And then I should be getting it back so that I can pass it ahead unless I am not able to achieve this. This is useless. So the idea is I have an asynchronous situation where, see, I don't mind before and after getting executed, but I should get the user object inside my user so that I can pass it ahead, because my next call is going to be const repos is equal to, and I will be creating a function get repos for user, and then I will pass this user from GitHub. And this is what I am trying to get. So if I pass an undefined here, obviously the repositories I'm going to get next from this will be of no use. So this is a problem, and the solution to this are in three ways. There are three solutions to this. First, make use of something called as callback functions. Second, is we will make use of concept called as promises. And third is where I will make use of something called as async await. Okay. So this will be a 2 video series where this video I'll talk about the callbacks, and the second one we'll talk about promises and async await, how easier it becomes to work with them. So let's jump into the callback solution. So I am creating a new file here. Let me call it as one async one with callbacks. And I will copy paste my problem statement so that I will be able to replicate and work on this. So see, this was the problem. Now the solution to this is in JavaScript, you are allowed, rather than returning this to any other function, we can pass, like our mother enabled us, like, okay, you call me back. So same way, we'll give this function something called as a callback. Yeah. That whenever you're done fetching this, don't don't do anything, don't return it anywhere, just call it back to the place I am asking you. So this is what we add up in a callback function. Okay. So here I say callback, and this callback will pass me on something called as my get user. Now, what I do, I create another function which is going to act as a callback function. So here in my get user, I will be passing two things. This, and then I pass the reference to my callback function. Okay. So here, let's do what? Create a function callback function where the ID is returned. See, I am keeping it quite simple, and this is the get user object which we should be getting. And here I can do what? Console log. I want a place where I can do my further process. So I'm just printing you get user, and I'll just tell here this is my callback function. Okay. This is my callback function. So what am I going to do next? This is my reference to the callback function, right? See, the whole process, what we have done here is I have a function which is doing some asynchronous task. Rather than returning from this function, I am telling them whenever you are done, call back. Call back where? To the function I am calling. So this is the reference. So I will replace this reference with callback method, callback function where the ID is returned, which is nothing but this function. So what will happen when this get user function is done with its processing, rather than returning from here and getting into an unnecessary workaround, what will happen? The process will be followed now. See, so we won't be getting the value back here, but we will be getting the value back in our callback function where we will be able to get that get user, and that is the first part of my execution. So what we do here is I called get user, I pass the ID, and I pass the reference to the function which was being called here. So this way, what will happen? I will get that get user back, and this get user will be printed. So let's try to execute this part first. And we are trying the solution which is the async node 1 callback. Now, before we execute, we will have to do a bit of a cleanup. First thing, this is not going to return a user anymore. So I'll take this off, and obviously it is not returning, so we cannot print it. Next is this is something I was just trying out, so not using it here. Next, what will happen? I will execute. This will run, before and after will run straight away. Then it will make the call to this get user. Get user will take its 3 seconds. After it is done, it will pass whatever user it has retrieved. It will pass on to whom? To the function we have asked to. So we will get the control here, and we can start further processing from this part. So let's do what? Node async callback. See, before after got executed. Now this time after 3 seconds, it is calling from the callback function, and I received the ID here. See, this is good. Rather than getting an undefined, we got a good ID here. This was something very important. We have done that. Next is we need to understand from this, I have another function, because the ultimate aim is what? I got the data from the callback which I received the ID. Now I need to pass it to the next function, which from where I will be getting my repositories. So we are creating a callback links. Next, what we will do is function. Now, obviously, if you remember from this point, if I took 3 seconds to retrieve the data from database, I might need another 3 seconds to get the data from the GitHub repo, right? So once I received my ID, then only I should be able to make this call. So what I do here, function get repos for git user, and here I pass the git user object. And from this, again, I'm emulating that I will be creating a set timeout where this will execute after, let's say, 5 seconds. It will take 5 seconds. And what are we trying to execute here? We say console log fetching repos from github.com, let's say. And it is also taking its own sweet time. Then I said const repos. I'm creating an array. What is this? Repo 1, repo 2. These are just the generic name. Repo 3. And then I return. For now, I'm doing what? I'm returning the repos again. And then what will I do? After so where will I call it? See, I cannot call it from here. I cannot call it from here because get user, the transaction is passing on where? To my get user enabled. Then from get user, it is calling to the callback. From this callback, because this is the place where I have the get user, what will I do? Fetching the repos from GitHub. Let's say for, and let me attach the ID, which is GitHub user dot username, and then comma. Okay, this way it will tell me that it is getting the value for that GitHub user and it is returning the repo. So this time, from where will you call this? After you get the value in the callback, because before that it does not make any sense and it will be passing on undefined, which will again return undefined. So I do what? Get repos for git user here, and I pass the git user object. So what am I expecting here? Is I'm expecting the repos. So I'll say const repos is equal to this. And if I print it here now, do you think so I'm going to get the output straight away? Yep. So if I say repos after this, I'm expecting undefined. Let's see what happens. Before, after, the first call is made. So I got the value from the undefined. It will happen. See, after 5 seconds, it is fetching the repositories from github.com for code with Z. It reached there. So where does it brings us now? It brings us now to another situation where whatever is returned from here, and you're thinking it correct, I need another callback now, because when this function executes itself, by the time the previous execution has completely happened, if you want the output from this method to be relevant, you will have to make sure that you create another callback. So for doing that, what will you do? Function callback function, where this time I will say callback function where repos are returned. Yeah, where repos are returned. And I will accept the repos and I will say console log repos, comma, repos. This way, what will happen? So rather than returning it here, what will I have to say? I'll say, please pass it to the callback. Please pass it to the callback, where I pass this one and I pass this one. And then you will, again, whenever you call this, you will have to accept a callback function. And from this callback, you will tell them where repos are returned. So this way, what will happen exactly is, from the first, when you get the value back into this git user, it will call another function which requires another callback. Why? Because it is also an asynchronous task. So this way you pass the git user, but you also pass the reference of the function where repos should be written, which is another function here where I'm printing my repositories. And this way, if I, this is the Now I should be able to get my output. See, this is still undefined. I should take that out console log. But this time it will pass to another function and see. I got repose 1, repose 2, repose 3. So this process where inside one callback, when you're calling another callback, see, this is one callback. From this callback, I had to call function where there was another callback. This is also called as callback hell. And this is the problem we are going to solve going ahead with the concepts of promises and async await, which are much better approach to this one. So this was the first video in our series of asynchronous JavaScript for React. And do share, like, share, and subscribe. This is, if you like this video, please subscribe and click on that bell icon so that you are notified when we put up the part 2 for this particular video. Thank you for watching, and yeah. So this was video 1 in our series of async await. Next video we will be so this was first video. So this was the first video in our series of asynchronous operations of JavaScript. Next video we will be talking about promises and async await, a very easy way to tackle this callback else. So if you like the video, please press that subscribe button, press the bell icon so you are notified when our next video drops in. Thank you for watching this video. Enjoy. This video we are going to talk about the concept of promises. Now last video we have seen how does asynchronous task work in JavaScript, and we saw how it went into an callback hell. So this video, like we do in our real life, when we have to do something which will be in near future and we want to commit to something, we make use of the term called as promise. We make certain promises like I'll quit smoking, I'll go to a gym, I'll do this, I'll do that. But that is in a future or a near future, and that can either that promise will be kept or it will be broken. So based upon how that promise is kept or broken, we take the further decisions. So same way in JavaScript, whenever you want to do an asynchronous task, there is an object called as promise which will allow you to handle this sort of asynchronous jobs very easily and in an efficient way. So let's jump into it and start understanding. So as discussed, a promise in JavaScript can result in either resolve or reject. That when the promise is fulfilled, we go to the resolve, and it is rejected, it is rejected. So as we have seen in the last example, here we had a callback function, you remember, right? And we went into a callback hell. So this time, what I'm going to do first, let us understand the concept of promise individually and then use it into the same example. So I will say async 1, async 2, promise concept. Okay, dot js file. So this is my concept which I want to understand. How we do that? Let's say const p is equal to new promise. So I have got an object called as promise. In this promise, there are two functions. Yeah, there are the inputs are two functions. See, this is where we write the asynchronous task. Okay, but where do I call when the promise is rejected and kept or broken? So they are given two inputs. First is what function to be invoked when promise is kept. Okay, first thing. And then they give two functions. Function to be invoked when promise is broken. When promise is broken. Now let us try to do some any task, not even an asynchronous task, any task. So here let's say console log, I'll say task to be performed. Okay. Then I say let's say my const task is successful. It's a number. Okay. And you remember from the truthy falsy value, if a value have a number, that will be considered to be true. So I'll say if my task is successful. So I will do what? I will invoke the function when promise is kept. Okay. When promise is kept. And basically I can pass I can say that I can pass any variable here, so any number, and I say task is successful number. And when I go to else is what, when the number is 0. So this time what I have to do is when the promise is broken, and I can simply say number is 0, or I can throw an error, something like that I can do from here. Now, so this is an object of promise. Yeah, this is an object of promise. After you have returned the promise, promise is asynchronous. Okay, promise is of nature asynchronous. Now what happens here, there are two functions inside promise. First is called as then function. Okay, so if I say p dot then, it internally takes a function here. What is this function? This is nothing but when your task is successful, right? This is the callback function which is invoked, it lands up here. So whatever is there passed as a parameter here will be received here. So I can say value returned when promise is kept. Okay, and you can do whatever you want there. And then at the same time, because this is a chained function, I can also have dot catch. Catch is where when the promise is broken. Yeah, catch is where when your promise is broken, it will be invoked here. So value returned when promise is broken. Okay, for now I will just print it here. So let's say uh, console log promise is kept, and console log what is the value returned when promise is kept. At the same time here, console log promise is broken, and console log value returned when promise is broken. So there are two iterations here, and we can check them out both now. So how about I just start a terminal. Switch to point, and here what I do is I will say node space. Okay, my file node space async IP2 C. Task to be performed. The promise is kept, and I was not able to pass the number. Why is that so? Task is, this number should have been okay. This has to go as a single value. I messed up here. Okay, now it will show the number. So promise is kept and number is 10. But at the same time, if I make it 0, that means this is not going to be, see, the promise is broken and the number is 0. So this way what happens when you have a promise and you keep that promise, see, it will be here. Then I will be having another promise here, and this value is what I get returned. I will be able to keep it very simply. Now, so I hope this clears the concept of promise. And now let's jump into another part where we do the same example where I had a user callback function when ID is written, repos for the user. You remember the case study, right? We get the data from the user database. Then I got the GitHub user ID. I make the call to the GitHub account and I get the repositories. So those things we have to do it here. But before we jump ahead, I want to show you something. See, when you write the promise, you cannot be writing the promise this long, right? It does not make sense. For understanding purpose, this is fine, but not when you are working like this. So like in a real project. So what you do when you create a promise, rather than saying function to be invoked when promise is kept, the standard value is to give it the function name as resolve. And when the promise is broken, we call it as reject. So instead, we call here what? We call the resolve function of this promise, and we call the reject function of this promise. Okay. And normally here, what we do, value is returned. So I say, like this is my value. Normally, I will call this as value. I will call this as value. You know what? I will also keep this commented so that if you want to check out or you want to follow along on this one, you will be able to do it properly. I will go ahead and comment this off. And now when I say value is being returned, I will just say value instead of other things. This time also I'll say value. And here I will say, because it's an error, I'll say it's an error value. Okay. Here also I will say it's an error value. Okay. This way, see, this time it is again 0 because my task successful value was 0. And if I make it something else now, let's say I make it 20, run it again. So task to be performed, promise is kept, and the number is 20. So this is the easier way of getting into the promise. Now let's jump into our actual case study and try to work on that. So what we will do here is, let's create one more file and call it as async3 promise solution for our actual case study. So actual case study was what? We had a get user function which had a callback function, and then we had a get repos for get user. So I'm going to copy these two functions now into my actual solution, function 1. And here I have got function 2. Okay, so what we are going to do here now is, let's take this callback function off. We don't need that anymore. And then create a new promise object. Okay, I'll say const p is equal to new promise. Okay, and in my promise, I will have my resolve and reject. So this is a basic format, right? Like whenever you want to write, you say resolve and reject. Now I will move all my asynchronous tasks which I was doing inside the body of my promise. Okay, this has become my body of my promise. And here what I do, I say resolve. So it will call the resolve function. Yeah, this particular function, like whenever this is done and we have got the get user, it will return me the resolve after this 300 seconds. And if you see, we have got this promise, and then from here I say return p. So I return my promise from here. Same thing I am going to do here again. First thing, step 1, get rid of the callback. Then create a new promise object. So I'll say const p is equal to new promise, and then this promise will have what? Resolve and reject. And inside that, I will move my asynchronous task. And instead of callback, I will now call my resolve function. Yeah, I will call my resolve function. And the last step, we have to return this promise from this particular function. So I have structured my function accordingly so that it will be able to get my scenario back. Now, if you see, this is returning what? A promise. This is also returning what? A promise. And now I have to make those calls. Like how did I do in the first one? I made the call get user, then inside the get user callback, I was calling the second one. This time it will be a bit easier. I'll say console log before. Then I say const promise is equal to get user. Now get user, and let's say I pass 1001 as my ID. Now because this is a promise, it will be having what? It will be either resolve or it will be rejected. So I'll say promise dot resolve. Okay, promise dot then. Yeah, we have seen that there is a then function. So I say promise dot then, and inside this then function, what it is exactly returning to me? It is returning the git user, right? So I will be able to get my git user here because it is coming as a incoming parameter. So I say git user, and that's fine. Then let's do what? I'll say console log, and here in this console log, I will simply just print the git user. Let's check this till this step, and then I also have dot catch. Now this dot catch will do what? It will give me any error if we have console log of error. So now let's try to execute this. We will say node space async 3 promise solution. So it goes for before, then it says wait for that time. So here it is waiting for 3 seconds, getting the data. Whatever is resolved, I will get it here. I got the value. Now you see, I want the repos from the git user, but this git user is actually doing what? it is also, it requires the git user as an input. So obviously I'll have to make the call from here because I have access to this git user inside this function. Plus I have to again attach that promise ahead. So I have to do what? I will say, see, const repos promise. This is my repos promise, right? Is equal to get repos for git user, and I pass my git user there. So this time what will happen? It will return me a promise. What I do? From this internal function, I return this repos promise. What will happen then? Then this then is actually returning a promise. Okay. So I can attach one more dot then, because see, this internal block of then is itself returning a promise. So obviously after this then I will be getting a promise back. That promise I can call the then function, which will return me the repos now. Yeah, this should be returning me the repositories. So I say whatever are the repos I got. So here I can simply say console log repos for user are, and I can just attach those repos. So it will give me a good idea about the repository. So what is happening? First I call the then, which I take the git user. It based upon this git user, it returns me the value. I get that value. That value is required in the second one. So here I return that promise. I call the other function which returns me the promise, and I return. So this internal function here is returning me the promise. That promise I am calling to the I get the promise. I call the then function. This way, what happens now is console log. Sorry, I say node space async 3. So first, after 3 seconds, it returns me the user ID, and after another 5 seconds, it will return me. See, repo 1, repo 2, repo 2. Yeah, it is returning me those data, and it is getting me the values back. Okay, so see, it's not very much like, if you see the callbacks, this is a much better approach where I am chaining the promises, like one promise returning another, and then I'm handling it there. Now one more situation I want to show you, what will happen if the promise get rejected. So in this situation, in both the situation, I will only have one catch. Why? Let's say if something goes wrong here, instead of resolve, I call reject. Yeah, instead of resolve, I call reject. And okay, let's not do it this way. I say reject. I'll keep this resolve as it is so that we know the exact difference. So I'll say reject, and inside reject I pass a new error object saying some issues while fetching username from DB. Okay, and now let's see what happens. Where does it block? So same catch. Okay, this needs to be commented. Okay. So it says some issues while fetching the username from DB. Okay. Now let's say the first promise resolved properly, and the issue was with the second promise. So here let's say I comment this, and this time I use the same reject but with a different message. Some issues while fetching repos from GitHub server. Okay. Now let's say what happens this time. So I got the first value, but while the second one was getting executed, it is giving me an error. So we don't need multiple catches. A single catch is enough, because any of the promise, if it gives you a rejection, that whole chain will be broken. So this is how you implement a promise instead of a callback. Callback is very, you can see callback is very tricky. You have to write a lot of functions. In promise, you just keep on chaining them. Yeah, you just create a chain, and based on that chain, it becomes easier for them to understand. Now the ultimate solution to this is using async await, which will make it way easier, which will be our next video. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will add this code on my git repo. You can check it out from there. Please do like, subscribe, share. If you like this concepts of promises, please share it with your friends. Thank you. Hey coding owls, welcome back to the channel. This video is going to be the last in the series where we started with asynchronous JavaScript. This video we will dedicatedly focus upon the concept called as async. So as you see from our previous series, we have created two functions. First, to fetch the data from MySQL, and then once we get the data from MySQL, we were passing that username to GitHub, and GitHub was returning that value back to us. And what we were discussing, so promises is something we have covered in depth. You can check out the video, link is in the description, or you will be able to see on the top of the screen right now. Plus, so this was how it was. We were making the promises, but how we were calling those promises is where the things started to get much more messier. That we create a promise, then we have to create a chaining. First is what? Then we get the get user, we use that get user, pass it on to another function which is returning a promise, and then we get back those repos promise, and then that repos promise is nothing but another promise. So we have to chain it. Rather than going in this way, if I tell you that there is another way I can actually create a solution based upon this, what if I tell you there is another way we can do this? Is simply we can say, okay, let me just quickly update this, and let's pick this up. So consider I do something like this const, and I want git user, right? First, so if I say git user is equal to get user function, and I pass 1001. Okay, then I say const repos is equal to get repos, and then I pass my git user, and that's it. If I say that you will be actually able to achieve this. Only thing is it has to be, there are two things we need to take it. First, we'll have to put this inside a function, and second is use two keywords called as async and await. Okay. Okay, so let's copy paste our solution. So I say async. So this time it is await solution. And this is the fourth video in the series. So as I told you, this part would remain same because we are returning the promise. This is well done. But what we need to do, only thing is I will put back the resolve here. We have been making some changes for reject in the previous videos. And as I said, let's put it in a different way here. What we are going to do, I have said const get user, yeah, const get user is equal to get user, and I pass 1001. And then what I want next is const repos is equal to get repos for get user, and the get user I received is something I will make the call. So let's just put this inside a context, and I say function display repos. Okay. So as I said, this requires to be inside a function, and the next thing is because this get user is returning a promise, I will have to mark this as C. Obviously, this is a asynchronous task. I cannot just wait and let them finish to get our data back, and it's not going to happen. If I run this straight away, let's see what happens. If I try to do display repos here, okay, let's see the consequence first. Let's try this out. So it is going to be node space async for, and okay, it's loading the data from database, and neither did I get the database value, neither did I get the repos. So this solution obviously right now is not working. There has to be some changes into this because we have to wait till the point I get my user back. I will have to mark this function with await. Okay, we'll have to mark this function with await, and the thumb rule is if you mark any statement with await, that function has to be under async block. Yeah, that function has to be under an async block. Okay, there has to be an issue here. What is that? So this function we mark as async. Okay, So here, what we are doing, once we mark it as async, it will now enable my repos, and let's see what happens in the other situation. Now, if I say console log git user, do I get really get a git user here? See, it is able to fetch the data from database now after 3 seconds, but nothing is happening. Yeah, the repositories, I am not getting those repositories. See, it is telling me it is getting those repositories, but I am not able to fetch it at this point in time. The reason being, the other call get repos for git user is also a so another call for git user, which is also a asynchronous call. I will also have to mark here as what await. And if I do console log repos here, let's see what happens. So first I should get my data. I got it. And then in the second situation, I should be getting my repositories, which I got. So this is a perfect way. And if you compare this with this one, and obviously with this one, this one was a big callback hell, but this await solution is much more easier to call. And one thing which we need to cover here more is what will happen in case a rejection happen. Let's say this is not resolved and this is rejected. So let's say how will our program behave in this particular point. So when the first one happened, see, it broke down and there was no way of handling this at all here right now. So in previous situation, you remember we had the catch block where we were taking care of it. So a simple way to take care of this particular situation is to put everything inside a try catch block. Okay. We put a try catch statement and we put all our asynchronous call inside the try block. And in the error, obviously we'll just say console log of error. Let's do that in that way. So this way, what happens now? Let's see. And let's try to see in a different way now. Make the change, make the call. And this time, see, it was reading the ID from database and I got the error. Yeah, the error exactly which was happening, I got that error, and here I can actually do something after that error. See, the difference is in the previous one, I was also getting that it was getting rejected. The reject was called, but if you see this time, it is not, it is telling me that reject is obviously called, but it is coming inside my error log area, and here I can do whatever I want now. So this is how basically you shift. You see the problem, what the things you did in your callback. From there we moved on to promise, and in promise we obviously we got the good way of making the calls, but accessing it was this was then was again getting into a chaining which I was not comfortable with, so we shifted to async await. Here you see that I just, the rule is you mark the function async, and wherever you are making an asynchronous call, just mark it with await. So that way it will work in a single order, but it will wait for the things to happen and it will seem to you like a normal code. So obviously JavaScript keeps on giving you things which makes your life much more easier. So thank you for watching this video. This was, I hope you liked this series of asynchronous way where we started with how they start with callback and it ends with async await. Subscribe to my channel and go and share it with your friends as well, those who are new to JavaScript. Thank you.